All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Let's Talk Real Life with Native Manning, a late night talk show. In fact, to me, it's the best late night talk show. Thank you for watching. This is WBIS LP 106.9. If you are watching a rebroadcast on social media, we hope you enjoy it. We hope you like. We hope you engage. And we hope and pray that you feel comfortable to share it. And there are other ways to watch the show. You can go to www.awesomeradio.org. You can go there and listen to the show 24/7. And of course, you can download the app, the Google Play Store or an Apple Store, and listen to us all day and all night. Play the gospel, bring the word, ministry. This is an excellent place to get your Christian nourishment. So, without further delay, we have a beautiful subject for you tonight. We're working on a series, but I'm going to let the host explain where she is and what she will be teaching on tonight. And I believe you're going to love it, but let's take a look. Well, hello, Miss Nada Manning, and how are you?
Good morning. Good morning to all of you out there. I am doing well. It's wonderful to be here one more time to talk to you about continuing with relationships. As I've said to you several weeks ago, we've been at it for a while, but it's just so broad.
It
It's,
is. It's real good too.
it is. It's just so much. I just don't have enough time and I probably would never be able to say it all, but I like to think that I'm trying to put a good dent in it. This relationship, I mean, it's just something it exists. It exists. It is what it is, and we're all going through it at all ages. So tonight, I want to continue with the next segment, which would be the college students. Last week we talked about the high schoolers, and just to give a little bit of recap on it, which carries right on over to the college students. And forgive me if I say kids because to me they are kids. So I might slip and say kids instead of students, but I mean students. So overlook the use of words as I go through various things. Last week, I believe we stopped at what honesty and truthfulness and accepting correction. That applies to all levels, folks. It applies to all levels. So, yes, I am your host, Nada Manning, and I am bringing to you from my heart as the Lord put it on my spirit to share with you all through experiences and challenges. And hopefully and prayerfully, some of these words will resonate in your hearts and minds out there across the world to know that relationships is something that we cannot do without because everyone at some point needs some kind of relationship. And many times it's a relationship, not all the time, but many times it's a relationship that we don't really want. It just happened to happen to us. But then that's life. That's the way life is. It seldom does it fall the way we want it to fall because that's the way God designed it. His ways is not our ways. So we want to make sure that we try our best. And we don't always get it right, and I'm guilty. We don't always get it right with these relationships because sometimes we follow our what? Our hearts or our minds instead of vice versa. And I want to say, it might be, you might can get in trouble either way. If you follow your heart get broken. If you follow your mind, you're not thinking straight. So it's a balance there where you have to gradually work into these relationships. And we're talking about college students now. So we're no longer talking about babies. These college kids have finished high school. They are preparing for their livelihood as they grow through life with their careers, potential families, children themselves that they may potentially have. So it's all kind of relationships out there, and it touches. The chain has so many links in it. This chain called relationships. It just can go around and around and around, and I think personally that it just never ends. It never ends. I don't think that one will ever reach the end of that chain as long as they have breath. Why? Because as long as we have breath, we're going to interact with somebody. And as we interact with somebody or bodies, some kind of relationship is going to come out of that. Might be a short one, brief, but something. Is that a bad thing? No, because we're supposed to learn something from every person that we interact with. Like I said, it could be brief, but it might be memorable, and it may not be memorable. But the point is, we get into these relationships not always the way we want to, but at the end of the day, it could end up being a good thing. We don't know until we try it. Now, that brings forth the thought of, I think I listed last time a lot of things that falls under things that affect our relationships. And remember, we're talking about college students tonight. They have finished high school. They are pretty much half grown. If not, some of them are grown because they could be 21, 22 years old, and it's a young adult, but they're still considered grown at that point. More growing to do, yes. So as we talk about things that affect relationships at the college level, they have gone through and met all kinds of people from the time they started kindergarten right on up to where they are now. So I would say kindergarten, say 5 years old. So 13, anywhere from 13 to 14, 15 years. You've met a lot of people in a lot of different areas, all kinds of folks, all kinds of relationships. Brief, some of them are brief and some of them are long, like I just said. And some of them you might follow through from high school going into college. You might have developed such a relationship with an individual where you want to be together. And it could be male or female or the same gender, but you have some common interests. And I've known several people that have done just that. Well, hey, where you going to go to college? And they say, oh, I've been accepted at this place and that place, two, three, and so that relationship goes on from high school right on through college. And truth be told, sometimes it goes right on through adulthood, years of it. That's not a bad thing, I don't think, because somewhere along those lines of that relationship developing, some trust has come into play, some disagreements. Everybody's not going to always agree with you. Just because you're going to have a relationship does not mean everybody is going to agree with everything everybody's saying. Because why? We are different people and we do have our own minds to make choices. So let's talk about some of those things that affect relationships at the college level. And it could be at any level, really. I want to start with being well, I'd like to think the rebelliousness has kind of left us by the time we get into college. That sounds like more of a regular school behavior and being, from elementary to high school. By the time you get into high school, I'd like to think being rebellious has lessened. It hasn't gone away, but it's much, much less. Because as I'm talking and I'm thinking, there are some college children that really have a rebellious attitude, but it's at a different level. Let's think of some examples at a college level. What could be rebellious? What would be a rebellious attitude at that level? Um, Perhaps it could be if they have that friend that have been with them. Now, because now that we're in college, we're definitely at the dating age. Oh, yeah. We're at the dating age now where we might have that significant other that we just hook to the hip and, we just going to be together. And it may end up being a marriage and it may not. But being rebellious in that particular situation is not going to be a good thing. I don't think being rebellious is a good thing, period, no matter what the situation is. But at that level, maturity should be just about kicking in for being more smart and wise about disagreeing. And that's where the rebelliousness come in, because I, I would say that I don't think I can pretty much put myself. I can't think of anything for myself at this point of being rebellious. Um, but there are some that I know that still carry that, let's say, male female relationship. Or it could be it could be either gender, but we get that rebelliousness can stem from jealousy, and the jealousy could be because you're my best friend, and somehow or another you became best friends with someone else. That can happen at the college level, and that creates that relationship to be uh, tainted, if you will, if that's a good word to use. It's been tarnished a little bit because the mindset, the emotions, the feelings are into it now, and it's a negative and not a positive. I thought you were my friend. How could you go do this or go do that? Why didn't you tell me you was going to go to this party, or and you met such and such a person? And you know, being rebellious and just being jealous of what was once a very good relationship, and now that relationship is being um, messed up. It's being messed up. Somebody between the two of them, and it could be a threesome between that relationship between the two or three people. Somebody in that little group is going to have to be the bigger person, and be wise enough to say to the other two, wait a minute, what's going on? You're going to fall out. You've been friends forever, and you're going to let this situation break you up? What happened to the bond that was once there? What happened to the we stick together forever? The what do you call it? The do or die or stay together, whatever the term may be. What happened with that? You're in college now. You're supposed to be smarter. You're in a different class of folks. You're not supposed to be bringing that high school mentality into college. You have to let that go. Otherwise, it's going to ruin the rest of your life. Having that relationship with that individual, and I can sense how it can be a problem, especially if you've been together 10, 12, 13 years as friends. And you've been through it all. You've been to the parties. You've been to the sad times with the other one's family and all of that. You've been right there like a brother or a sister. And all of a sudden, now that you're at this level in your life, you are going to allow something negative just that quick to interrupt what you've built for 10 years, 12 years. So, that third person, which would be what I call uh, what, what do you call that the third person that's trying to keep peace, that's trying to keep things the way they were, to trying to hold the friendship, the relationship together. That same relationship could be when you do get married, that person may be your best man or your maid of honor in your wedding. You're just that close. You've been knowing one another just that long. At college level, we cannot let something like that interfere. Really, at any level above high school, because we passed that elementary stuff. So being rebellious is not a good thing, and we really want to think about it before we go into it. Uh, you know, go to ourselves, go to our private space at home, in the room, in the closet, in the car, in the park, someplace to think it out and ask yourself, is it really worth losing your friendship over? Whatever it is that's causing you to be rebellious. Whatever it is you don't like. It don't have to be a person. It could be a particular grade. It could be a particular score in a classroom. How do you get that grade and I studied more than you did? I'm the one that helped you. I'm the one that tutored you through it, and you end up getting an A or a 90 or a 95, and I end up with a what? A 70. How did that happen? Wait a minute. These are college students. We need to get high grades in order to continue. Suppose we have a scholarship. We have to keep a certain grade point average to keep that scholarship going. And that's another thing that could cause one to be rebellious at that age. You know, you end up with a scholarship and your best friend didn't get one. Uh oh. Uh oh. How you get a scholarship? Uh, Maybe I studied a little harder. But we've been together since the beginning of time. We studied together. Well, somewhere along the line, whoever it was that did not get a scholarship, they didn't make something right. When one thought the other one was at home studying, the other one probably was out at a party or something. Or two people just don't have the same study habits. You know, to make that positive, then they should be pulling together to help one another in whatever the weaker area is. That's the relationship, to build on it, to keep it going. But not always does that happen. And like I said, don't let the opposite sex come into play. If these are two females or two guys and they get interested in this young lady, that's going to change the whole thing most of the time. Not all the time, most of the time. It changes things because our interests change. And we are of age now where we can, you know, go a little further in our relationships, if you will. And then emotions set in, and then we get our minds just seem to go haywire. It happens because why? That's life. I am your host, Nada Manning, and we are talking real life on Let's Talk Real Life show. And I do hope that you enjoy it. Please call in at 252-756-2008 with any comments or questions. That would be great to hear what you have to say about this. And at this hour tonight, it does not surprise me that there are some college kids that are up that could be potentially studying or taking a break or whatever. And you might tune in on Facebook and you see this lady talking about the students and the college kids and all of this kind of stuff. Yes, yeah, you can if you can, if you have a moment, take out some time and dial the number 252-756-2008. I would love to hear from a student about this because you all out there are in a different level than it was when I was a student in college. Things are a whole lot different, and I would love to hear your opinion. You have a comment, sir?
I just think you're on point with where you're going and calling the students out. And I'm sure some of us, or some of them, see the show on GPAT stream, on
Mm-hmm.
television. And so I'd like to say you're on it. They have a totally different, it's kind of cute. I'm around a lot of college age students now. I mean, a lot, about 4 days a week. And it's very interesting that they are absolutely different. I'm Generation X. I think you're a baby boomer,
Mm-hmm.
and they're the Y, the millennials, and I think they're Gen Z, the youngest ones, that's just starting to hit the freshman college age.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say their profile, they don't lie very well. They're very interested in the 80s adults and the lifestyle that we had as 80s kids. Well, we were socialized in the 80s.
Right.
So they're interested in that era. It's a lot of peculiar things about them. So thank you for calling them calling on them to call in to say, hey, this is the way I think. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you something else unique about that group that's really affecting their relationships. The pandemic had really influenced that group because a lot of them were in high school and they were on lockdown.
Yeah.
So cooking, just their social construct, uh, going to school remotely. So you're speaking to a group
Hmm.
young college students that were high school students, likely during the pandemic,
Right.
and they are now trying to make their way.
Right. Yeah. Amen. That is definitely, and I would say that they are different in many ways. In many ways, they're an interesting group. Yes, they are.
Mhm.
And because of their interest in even being in school, going to school, having a desire to be in school, sets them apart from those at their age who are not interested. And I realize everybody don't have that education mentality. A lot of children at that age just want to be working or learning hands-on, having a trade, something that don't take 4 years to get. They rather just go someplace and get some training for a year if they can get away with a year. Why do I have to go? Why do I have to go
Mhm.
to this place and be there for 4 years? And then if I want to do some more, I got to go for 2 more years, and then some more years after that. It's like, oh man, it's just too much. It's just too much schooling, too many books. When I can go to a trade school and pick up something and hopefully get a job that pays just as much. There's some pros and cons about that as well. But as we move forward, um, that rebellion thing can hold us back in many ways. And that's at any age because let's take sports, for example. You have college students that are playing football, college football, which is the season now, this football. You take a rebellious attitude, you can have good grades, and coach, you can chime in on this one. You can have good grades, you can be doing well in every area, you're sociable, you got it going on in that sense. But as soon as something goes south, something that does not go the way you want it to go, or you didn't make that home, that whatever the term is that you call it in football, you did not make those points, I guess. Something set you off. Oh, then the real you come out. Coaches are watching that because you are in the college level and you have a potential of moving further in that sport field to become a professional. Who knows? One thing that I learned from my son with basketball is your attitude has a lot to do with how successful you are. It's supposed to be a team effort. It's not a you effort. It's not about you, only you. You have a team. You're on a team and you have to work together. You don't work against your team. You work with your team. But if you feel like you have to be the star and you made it, whatever it is, one or two, whatever points, goals, or whatever it was, and now you the man or female, not necessarily football, it could be basketball, or I'm just giving you a good example. It
Mhm.
can cause some friction. And you talk about rebellious.
Mm.
that team, one person, I believe, can throw the team off, especially if it's a star person, a star team player. He can throw the whole thing. Hello?
Yeah, that just kind of comes with it's a natural inclination for the superstar on the team to get a little big headed,
Yeah.
and you have to. It's hard to coach that too, at times, because they're just straightforward going at it. They may have a lot of natural talent, and you can coach a game, but it's hard to coach that talent. That's just it's already naturally embedded, and a lot of other kids are sort of hating because they have to work harder to get what they got. So that one person you're referring to changes the dynamics of the whole team, the whole squad.
And many times, if that team player does not get his or her self together, they can get removed because the coach or coaches or whomever it is that's looking at the ones that they want to pull to higher levels in the sport, that one is just not going to make it because why? If they're doing it there, they're going to do it at the next.
Hmm. Yep, they can self sabotage themselves. A coach can pretty much, if he doesn't address the issues, let's say he's a star player and he lets the star player do whatever he wants. If he doesn't address some of the issues that's off the field in the classroom, you might as well just say he's just letting them
Correct.
go rampant, and the young person can self destruct.
Yeah.
Just because you want to win the game, you like the ball hog, and and sometimes coaches get intoxicated or rely upon a star player, but you have to spread the you have to play the game rather than play it around one player, even though it naturally happens sometimes.
Yeah. So it's an effort on the player and as well as the coaches
It is.
to keep it together to make so that the team can do well.
Hmm.
And those that are not star players have to also check their attitudes against that star player
Hmm.
because they're being watched as well. So
And I like to emphasize that when I coach, if you're on the bench, it's class in session, and the other part is you're a first responder. You better be ready.
mhm,
Don't think you're sitting third string and you're not going to get in. If I put you in the game for 1 minute, you better you better give me the same thing as if you played for 20.
right,
I don't care what it is. So because it's my job as a coach to develop that person that's not as good, so he'll be here next year,
right,
or so that they may be a late bloomer and late in the season, somebody liable to get hurt. So I coach from that perspective, especially with the parents. If a child is not as competitive as the other, I don't make any kind of comparisons. Now you play your game. Your son is your son. If you want to work with him, kind of speed things up, some after practice workouts he could do or she can do, extra shots.
right,
That when you get to the college level, all the players have to do that, and all the players that do that, it'll show up in the game. Even the star players realize people coming for them. They'll practice all day long.
right, right. And that's the whole point behind it being the whole team. Every team player has a job to do, and that's working with themselves.
Hmm.
Um, and in the real work world, you that's one thing that we must learn, all of us, men and women, is to learn how to be a team player, and that's hard for some of us. It's hard for some of us, and we're not just talking sports now. We're talking about our careers.
Hmm.
Once these students get out of the college level and they move on and they choose not to continue their education, they choose to get a job and start their career. Having a team, being on a team, is almost like drinking water. It's the thing to do today. And many of us don't do well with that. And that relationship, yes, this what does this? This has everything to do with a relationship
Mm-hmm.
because you're around other people. So being a team player, you start at the sports level, but it's preparing you. And as a coach, you know, male or female coach, many times, and I think I talked about this last week, many times these students, high school or college, they depend on that coach as their supporter, if that's a good word, because they don't have the support outside of the school or outside of the game. They don't have that support. They don't have that backup that's going to force them to do better. I know you can do better. You can do this. They don't get that. So the coach is there to encourage them and to push them. I've learned that also in my career. That was one of the things that my commander had done. And he would tell me, he said, "Man, I know you can do this. I know you can do this." But it was the hardest thing. And even in high school, I felt like I was being picked on all the time. How come you're not getting on nobody else like that? How come you always riding my back? Sometimes those coaches and teachers see something in you, us, that we don't see in ourselves at that age. They
Uh-huh.
see the potential there.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, you talked about comparison a few minutes ago. That was going to be my next area.
Oh,
And
really?
now that I finished with rebellion, I was going to talk about comparison. These are things that affect relationships. Many of us compare ourselves with somebody else,
Oh my goodness.
and that's not a good thing.
Still in my old age,
Yeah, yeah.
if I'm working with a group or I'm working with a team, I'm gonna get in trouble for marching to the beat of my own drum, as it
Okay.
was as a teenager, all as a youth, all the way up to this day. I was just in trouble day before yesterday. But yes, people comparing yourself, thinking that somebody I'm trying to outperform somebody, or if I get in my zone, I'm just looking at the elements that I got to work with, and I'm headstrong with that. But you do have to show temperance. I think the Bible might say temperance, or
Temperance.
yeah,
Right.
it's also
Hmm.
you have to be considerate
Hmm.
among others. Not that you're trying to run over them, but if you're
Respectful.
doing right, respectful. If you're doing more work than everybody else, that can be disrespectful in their minds.
Yeah. But remember, we also talk about being humble,
Yes, and if I could be
humility.
working and don't say a word, and just be people watch me, and I know now because I'm of age. The comparison thing will make people feel like, look at him. Well, he doing this and he doing that. That has cost me a lot of things in my life. So I know God has directed my path, but it caused me not to be as assertive as I should be when I should, because a lot of times in life I stood down because I knew people were watching me, or I made them feel bad because of the way I did things. Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of your lesson, but that comparison thing, I'm gonna be all ears. I want to see what you got. Yeah.
Comparing oneself to someone else is to me, um it can be a positive thing. It can be. It depends on the individual and how they do that, how they handle it. Um, let's say, for example, and I'm going to use myself. I have not always considered myself a competitor. Now, that's me, about me. But others do. Others, like you said, they have a tendency to look at anyone that stands out above or beyond them. Now, my comparison has always been a physical thing
Mm.
because, like I said early months ago, I've always been the tallest one in my class, and there was,
Oh,
huh?
I said, oh, I'm sorry. I was just expressing.
Okay. Um, and then there were some that were, Lord forgive me, there were some that appeared to me to be 4 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
Those
Mm-hmm.
are the ones that gave me the hardest time. And I'm like, really? And I haven't done anything. I'm just in the classroom. I haven't raised my hand for an answer. I haven't butted up to the teachers. I'm just sitting in the classroom or walking in the classroom. Haven't said anything. For
Mm-hmm.
example, the school just starting. You don't. There were times when I didn't know anybody in the classroom, and that student thing that I talked about the past couple of weeks, where your friends will follow you going to your next class.
Mm-hmm.
I that was something that I'm sure existed, but I didn't pay it any attention. So to say that I was chumming up to somebody, well, what? This is the children's attitude. So that
Mm-hmm.
comparison thing, the positive thing is if you see someone that you admire and you want to follow behind in some of their behaviors or their responses or their decisions, that's a positive thing if they're doing something positive. The negative side of that is when you're comparing is the you yourself have an attitude about it. Well, I don't know why all that's happening or why she getting all the breaks. I've done such and such and such and such. So now here we are at the same level, the same grade, so to speak, but yet she's getting all the breaks. What makes her so much better than me? So you're comparing yourself and your ability. We do the same things, we have the same courses, we spend the same time doing this and that. So what do I have to do to make myself more visible or better? That mindset of being better that goes from I think right on through adulthood, right on through seniors, so right on through till death come hit us. We see someone that we want to mimic after. Is that a bad thing? Only if that mimicking is negative. You don't want to mimic yourself behind someone that's not doing anything with their lives. Students out there, I hope you're listening. This is Let's Talk Real Life. I am your host, Nada Manning. Please call in at 252-756-2008. Voice your opinion. Let's talk. I'd love to hear from you. Whether you like what I'm saying or not, I still want to hear from you. You want to add to it or you want to take away, you want to have some what ifs, all of that. We're here to talk about the real life issues that are out there and comparing ourselves with someone else can have a negative and a positive uh, attack to it. So we want to stay on the positive side. We want to compare with someone that's doing positive things, someone that's making a difference in people's lives in a positive manner. When we want to compare, we want
Well,
to not think about ourselves. We want to think about others as we move forth in life. We want to compare with someone else that's really doing something out there to make a difference to help the children, to help the less fortunate, to help the homeless. Okay, if you want to compare yourself with something like that. Those students that are in school that have these projects that they're working on, the pregnancy team, the homeless team, and the children that don't have a family, those type things that are in the system. That's a project. If you want to compare yourself, students, compare yourself with someone that's doing something good, not something bad. You had a comment.
just a quick note on comparison. I work with a person that's probably 5'6", a couple times a week, and the comments that I get about being tall, that person hears them. So I know. I know it affects them, or at certain times.
Right.
But that's life. I mean, we're cool. I could just tell. Anyways, I told him about my story of being too short, even at 6'3", to play tight end, defensive end, which was a rude awakening when I had a full scholarship to go to a particular college, and I got out there on the field, and the coach told me to go over there with the linebackers. I'm thinking I'm about to play tight end or defensive end or something. Where this particular coach, his tight end started at 6'5". So I didn't make the cut for his tight ends or defensive ends. So I was too short. Well, that cost me my football scholarship because I walked off the field. Now I shouldn't have done that. I should have had somebody like Coach Garrison got in my face and said, dude, you don't know what you're gonna play. You get out there and perform. You're in a different world. Go play linebacker for a little while. One day ask for a shot at being a tight end, or ask the coach. Same way as I got on varsity from junior high school.
Mm-hmm.
They called me over to the varsity team and gave me a shot, and I blew them out of the water. So I started in high school on varsity. So I could have did the same thing in college, but
no.
we think we know everything.
Right.
But the story I told him was, yeah, I was too short,
Mm-hmm.
and I was.
Yeah.
Seriously, it wasn't. I didn't embellish. A lot of tight ends are 6'4", 6'5" on the college level. My coach, who sent me to that school, did not tell me
that you had to be a certain height.
that I am undersized, even though I'm taller than most of the folks on the team. When I told the guy that I work with now about that, his whole disposition changed. Because I was telling him, I'm like, just be the height that you are and work that.
Work
And
with what you
handle your business from that height. You thinking, I'm thinking I'm tall. No, that's just when people see me now. Lastly, I will say this. This is gonna be funny to the audience. I was getting something to eat at a local restaurant today, and it was so funny. And there was this lady in front of me getting her food. And when we got to the cash register, I messed up the 6 feet thing, and I'm just in another world listening to my music in my headphones. But I had to slide it off because I had to pay for my food. I had to be able to hear. And she turned around and looked at me. She said, you know, I I sure could use you to walk around with me as an umbrella. I was like, what in the world? I just started laughing. She thought I was the tallest thing in the world, that I could cast a shadow and be her umbrella.
Wow. So that was a positive thing.
Yes, I was flattered that I got a compliment, and it's the best one I believe I've had. It was nothing behind it. She just felt like that if I were walking with her, I would be her umbrella.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So she was admiring your height.
Yes, that was a comment based on admiration,
Right.
and I had no clue at all. And she said it so tastefully, it wasn't, I
Right.
thought that was cool.
Right. And that's the thing about comparing. Uh, so it can be a negative thing and a positive thing. It's all in how it's given and how it's received. Because I can give it. Now, your situation, that could have been, she could have been meaning one thing, and you could have taken it a different way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's all in receiving and giving,
Mm.
how it's put out there. Because some people just have an attitude and just saying, you know what, they just have that persona about their body language or something. Body, anyway. Uh, comparing can be helpful, and obviously that comparison made your day,
Yeah,
and
that was the part of one of the best parts of the day. Yes.
that's a good thing. So now, as we move forward, folks, we down to 6 minutes. Oh my goodness! Ah,
Time flies when you're having fun.
woo, 6 minutes. Ah,
Six
how in the
minutes.
world? 6 minutes, Lord. Let's see.
It was 5 minutes and 5 seconds over here on this time. So what you gonna do? Because
5 minutes. What
Lord
can I
willing,
say?
we got to come back next week.
Yeah, 5 minutes to say, um, what can I put in there? Well, I already talked about attitude, but I want to, since I don't have but 5 minutes, I want to put this out there. Um, things that affect relationships. Things that affect relationships. I'm going to briefly talk about blended families at the college level. Blended family. Now, again, blended family can tie into comparison and it can tie into being rebellious. Some blended families have that going on. You're at a college level, you might be the second of maybe four children, and it's a blended situation. So I'm trying to narrow this down to 1 or 2 minutes here because next week I want to touch on it some more. But blended families, as that student goes off to college, they're leaving two or three of their siblings at home, which again, these are step children because it's a blended family. The parents remarried and so forth and so on. So they go to this school away from their siblings. They become very, they should become very independent, but somehow or another they seem to cling to a new relationship, whether it be a male or a female. Let's just say it's a female and a female, or a male and a male. Females have a tendency to want to have a um, relationship that's very similar or just the opposite of what they have at home. In blended families, there's some type of jealousy going on because now I have this brother or sister that's really not my real brother and sister. And so they go out into the college level area and they meet someone or two people that they want to reel in as a brother or sister because that's what they're used to having in that blended family. They know that student is not their real brother or sister, but they want to take them. They have that mindset, that mentality, because that's the way they were brought up with that blended family. Now they may not have been in a blended family for that many years, but they have that mindset that this is something they want to continue to do, or not. Since they had it already at home, they may just want to do the opposite when they get in college. So blended families can cause relationships to um, get better or get worse, or perhaps stay the same. It's all in what that person wants to do with that new person that they have in their life as college students. Because let's face it, when you're in college, you're pretty much on your own. You're no longer under mom and dad or grandpa and grandma at home. You are grown, you're on your own. You're going to make your grade and do better and pass on in each semester like you should, or you're not, because nobody's there to make you go to bed at 9 o'clock because you got to get up and go to school. You stay up all night if you want to and sit up and nod in class the next day. You're bringing it on yourself. You
One
are a
minute.
student. 1 minute.
1 minute.
So I've just been reminded of the time, and I'm going to close off at this point. Next week, we are going to continue with this subject of blended families. Father God, thank you. It's been an interesting topic tonight talking about these college students, and Lord, you know all about them. I pray, Lord, that you will watch over them in these various schools throughout the nation, throughout the world. They're continuing their education. So be with them, Lord, as we come back again next week to continue this Let's Talk Real Life show. I am your host, Nada Manning, and it's a great pleasure to be here with you this morning. So you continue to have yourself a wonderful rest of the night, a great weekend. Until next Wednesday night at midnight, I thank you. God bless you and be safe out there. Amen. Amen. All right.